The Resident Evil saga is a massive, spiraling epic of corporate greed, bioterrorism, and the simple, desperate will to survive. Its timeline spans decades and contains a complex web of events, characters, and monsters that can be tough to piece together. Even when you have played the games, sometimes you feel like I've missed some of it. I've missed characters' backgrounds, plot lines, etc. This video is going to be the complete inner universe story of Resident Evil, from its dark beginnings with Umbrella Corporation all the way to the newest threat facing the world in 2026. We are going to connect every key point, every character arc, and every single outbreak to build that ultimate chronological experience, from the first steps into the Spencer Mansion to the latest horrifying chapter. This is the definitive timeline of Resident Evil. It all started with a virus, a single organism with the power to rewrite life itself. But this wasn't a story about a scientific breakthrough. It was a start of a nightmare that would eventually consume the entire planet. The story of Resident Evil isn't just about zombies. It's about people who created them, the heroes who fought them, and the devastation cost of ambition left completely unchecked. We will chart the course from the original T-virus outbreak in 1998 through to the fall of Raccoon City, the global expansion of bioterror, the tragic saga of the Winters family, and conclude with the very latest events of the newly released Resident Evil 9. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, people, to the channel. And also don't forget to check out the sponsor of this video, thenerdbazaar.co.uk. Currently he's selling the Resident Evil 9 statues, that is Grace and Leon Kennedy, on his website. He actually makes the models himself from a 3D printer and hand paints them. So be sure to get your hands on them and use code FLIPBOOK24 on your purchases to get 10% off. Thank you so much, and here we go. The foundations of a nightmare. Before the screams, before the bloodshed, there was ambition. In the mid-20th century, three brilliant minds, yet foolish, Oswald Lee Spencer, Edward Ashford, and Dr. James Marcus, found something incredible in West Africa. It was a unique retrovirus called the progenitor virus, and it could cause dramatic, violent mutations in living things. While Ashford saw its potential for good, the aristocratic and yet naive Spencer saw something else entirely: a path to immortality and the creation of a new supreme human race. And of course, he planned to use it to rule over them like a god. To fund their research and give themselves a public face cover, the three founded the Umbrella Corporation with the help of the US military in 1968. To the world, Umbrella was a successful pharmaceutical company. Privately, it was a weapons manufacturer, using its massive resources to weaponize the progenitor virus. They built a research facility deep within the Arklay Mountains, with its lavish mansions servicing as a deceptive front door. Dr. Marcus, meanwhile, was given his own training facility to groom Umbrella's future elites. Eventually, Marcus had a breakthrough. By mixing the progenitor virus with the leech DNA, he created the tyrant virus, or T virus for short, a mutagen that could bring back the dead as flesh-eating monsters. But Spencer, always the paranoid conspirator, got nervous about Marcus's independent success. In 1988, he sent two of his best researchers, Albert Wesker and William Birkin, to assassinate Marcus and steal his research for their own. They succeeded by dumping Marcus's body and claiming his work for themselves. Wesker and Birkin became Umbrella's new prodigies, and Birkin would later go onwards to develop an even more powerful virus, the G virus. But 10 years later, the impossible happened. The leeches Marcus had belovedly cultivated included a special queen, which merged with his corpse. Dr. James Marcus was now reborn, not as a man, but a vengeful monster commanded by the swarm of his creations. His mind was fragile and consumed by one single desire: revenge against Umbrella and Oswald E. Spencer. And his final act would trigger the event that started it all. The beginning of the end, July 1998. On July 23rd, 1998, the reborn Dr. James Marcus attacked the Ecliptic Express, a private luxurious owned by Umbrella. The train was full of employees, and Marcus's leeches unleashed the T-virus, turning them all into flesh-eating zombies. As reports of cannibalistic murders started popping up in Raccoon City around the Arklay Mountains, Raccoon City's elite police unit, STARS, was sent out to investigate. Bravo team went first. Their helicopter malfunctioned, forcing them to make an emergency landing in the forest. There, the team found a overturned MP transport. The guards were dead, and their prisoner, a former Marine lieutenant named Billy Conan, who was sentenced to death for a crime he didn't commit, had escaped. Separated from her team, the youngest member of STAR's Bravo team, an 18-year-old medic and chemist named Rebecca Chambers, stumbled upon the Ecliptic Express. Inside, she found not only the undead, but also the fugitive, Billy Conan. Forging an alliance, the two fought their way through the train, only for it to be cowering towards an abandoned facility. The very same facility where Dr. James Marcus was murdered a decade earlier. It was here they uncovered the truth. Through old files and Marcus's ghostly appearance, they learnt about his creation of the T-virus, his assassination by Wesker and Birkin, and his monstrous rival. They discovered Marcus himself was responsible for the outbreak on the train in the woods. The pair battled through hordes of Umbrella's failed experiments, from giant insects to infected primates known as eliminators. Their journey ended in a final confrontation with the Queen Leech, the entity that was now Dr. James Marcus. Working together, Rebecca and Billy exposed the Queen to sunlight, its main weakness, and destroyed it for good. As dawn broke, Rebecca, knowing Billy was innocent, let him escape, taking his dog tags as proof of his death. She told him her official report would say he was killed in the incident. Having served her first brush of bioterror, Rebecca looked towards the hills. She saw a lonesome mansion just over the hill and knew her ordeal wasn't over. She had to find the rest of her team and headed towards that mansion. Nightmare in the Mansion, July 1998. Within 24 hours after Rebecca's portability, on the night of July 24th, 1998, STAR's Alpha team was sent to find the missing Bravo team. Led by Captain Albert Wesker, the team included veteran soldier Chris Redfield, ex-Special Forces agent Jill Valentine, and the weapons specialist Barry Burton. Right after landing, they were attacked by a pack of monstrous dogs, a BOW called Cerberus. Their pilot, Brad Vickers, panicked and abandoned them, forcing Chris, Jill, Wesker, and Barry to flee into the nearby Spencer mansion. The mansion, though, was not a safe haven. It was a death trap. The doors were locked and the hallways were patrolled by zombies. The team were split up, forced to navigate the mansion's puzzle box architecture while fighting for their lives. They discovered scattered and dead members of Bravo team, including a wounded Richard Atkin, who saved them from a giant feminist snake, and a terrified Rebecca Chambers, who joined them. As they dug deeper, they found the mansion was just a front for a huge high-tech underground laboratory. Files and journals revealed the horrified truth. Umbrella was behind everything. This was the heart of their illegal bioweapon research. They were creating monsters called bioorganic weapons, or BOWs for short, like the reptilian hunters and the great white shark Neptune. But the biggest betrayal was yet to come. The commander of STAR's unit, Albert Wesker, was a double agent for Umbrella. He had planned the whole incident, luring both STAR's team to the mansion just to get combat data how trained soldiers would handle his BOWs. He revealed his plan to the survivors, explaining that he was going to sell the data and the ultimate BOW to rival companies. Then he unleashed the ultimate creation, the Tyrant T002, a towering, monstrous super soldier. But the Tyrant couldn't be controlled. Its first act after activation was to impale Wesker, seamlessly killing him. The survivors, Chris, Jill, Barry, and Rebecca, raced against the clock as this facility was about to self-destruct. Reaching the helipad, they confronted one last time the Tyrant. Just when all hope had seemed lost, their pilot, Brad Vickers, returned and dropped a rocket launcher. With one explosive shot, the Tyrant was obliterated. The 4 survivors escaped the Spencer mansion and the lab burnt. They returned to Raccoon City, determined to expose the corporation, but their warnings fell on deaf ears. The chief of police, Brad Irons, was on Umbrella's payroll, and the public just couldn't believe such a wild story. The nightmare, though, was just starting. The destruction of Raccoon City, September 1998. While the mansion survivors tried to expose Umbrella, the T-virus, which had leaked from the Arklay Mountains, spreading through to Raccoon City's water supply via infected rats. By late September, the city was a war zone. This is where the timelines of the two games split and overlap each other in the meanwhile. The story starts on September 28th with Jill Valentine. Having resigned from STARS, she was trying to leave the city, but she was too late. The city was already falling apart. Her escape chronologically in Resident Evil 3 was made a whole lot harder by a new terrifying pulsating monster. Umbrella tried to eliminate the remaining store's members who knew the truth and deployed its most advanced bioweapon yet, the Nemesis T-type. This intelligent, reckless creature was programmed with one single mission: kill stars. Through her escape, Nemesis hunted Jill, grueling and growling out the word stars. During her fights, Jill ran into mercenaries from the Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, or UBCS. She partnered with one of them, Carlos Oliveira, a soldier who slowly realized his employers were the real bad guys. While trying to reactivate the city's tram system, Jill was cornered by Nemesis and infected with the T-virus. She passed out and Carlos had to race to find a vaccination, which he managed to synthesize at the Raccoon's General Hospital. While Jill was unconscious, the events of Resident Evil 2 unfolded. On September 29th, two new people arrived in the doomed city. Leon S. Kennedy, a rookie cop on his first day in Raccoon City, and Claire Redfield, a college student looking for her brother, Chris Redfield. They met by chance at a gas station on the edge of the town, only to be thrown right into the chaos. They fought their way through to Raccoon City's police department for shelter, but found it was completely overrun. Inside the museum-like station, they were separated. They uncovered the corruption of Police Chief Brian Irons and the story of William Birkin, the paranoid scientist behind the G-virus. Birkin tried to stop Umbrella from taking his life's work, injected himself with the G-virus. He turned into a mutated, ghoulish monster known as only as G. He stalked the underground, hunting for his own daughter, Sherry Birkin, to implant his embryo, seeing her as the perfect host to do it. Leon was helped by a mysterious Ada Wong, a spy claiming to be looking for her boyfriend, but who was eventually sent by a rival corporation to get the G-virus sample. Claire, meanwhile, dedicated herself to protecting the young girl, Sherry. Their paths met in the massive underground lab hidden beneath the city. It was here that Birkin's wife, Annette, was killed trying to stop her monstrous husband, and where Ada was apparently killed by the G-virus creation. A heartbroken Leon pressed on, and with Claire and Sherry, they escaped the lab on an underground facility train, just as another self-destruct sequence kicked in. But the G-virus monster wasn't done, and after a final desperate fight, it was destroyed. Safely outside the city, Leon, Claire, and Sherry looked back at the burning horizon. Leon decided to fight monsters like this for a living and was soon recruited by the US government. Claire continued her search for her brother, Chris Redfield. Just as they escaped, Jill woke up on October 1st, cured. She and Carlos fought to the end escape point, only to learn that the US government had made a terrible choice. To stop the T-virus from spreading globally, they were going to sterilize Raccoon City with a missile. After one last climatic battle against a horrible mutated nemesis, Jill finally pulls down with a railgun. She and Carlos escapes in a helicopter. Moments later, the missile hits and Raccoon City is no more. The Twins from Hell, December 1998. 3 months after escaping Raccoon City, Claire Redfield searched for her brother Chris, which led her to Umbrella's Paris facility. She was quickly caught and sent to Rockfort Island, a remote prison and training ground for Umbrella's elite force unit. The island was run by Alfred Ashford, the flamboyant and unstable heir to the one of Umbrella's founding families. Shortly after Claire got there, the island was attacked by an unknown force, leading to yet another T-virus outbreak. In the chaos, Claire escaped and partnered with a fellow prisoner, Steve Burnside. They discovered the attack was led by Albert Wesker, a survivor of Raccoon City. Having survived his death in the mansion by injecting himself progenitor virus, Wesker now had superhuman strength, speed, and a burning hate for Chris Redfield. Wesker was there to get a sample of the unique virus developed by Alfred's brilliant twin sister, Alexia Ashford, the T. Veronica virus. Claire managed to email Leon, who then contacted Chris, finally telling him where she was. Chris immediately headed for Rockfort Island. Meanwhile, Claire and Steve uncovered the horrifying truth of the Ashfords. Alfred was obsessed with his sister, who had been cryogenically frozen years ago after injecting herself with the T. Veronica virus, allowing her body to fully merge with it. Alfred's fractured mind led him to develop a split personality, and he often dressed as his sister. After being mortally wounded, Alfred limped to his sister's cryogenic chamber and died, triggering her awkward awakening. Alexia, now a powerful being with fire-based powers, captured Claire and Steve and took them to another secret Umbrella facility in the Antarctic. By this time, Chris got to Rockfort Island, but Claire was gone. He was confronted by Wesker, who revealed in showing Chris his new powers. A brief one-sided fight was broken up when Alexia appeared on a monitor, revealing she had Claire. Wesker realized his real prize was in the Antarctic, and he left Chris to die, but Chris survived and followed him. In the Antarctic, he finally found and rescued Claire. They reunited with a short cutscene. Steve had been captured and injected with the T. Veronica virus, mutating into a giant axe-wielding monster. He briefly gained control, saving Claire from one of Alexi's tentacles at the cost of his own life, confessing his love for her just before he died. While a broken-hearted Claire prepped their escape, Chris confronted Alexia. After several intense battles against her various mutations, Chris finally destroyed her with an experimental weapon. He then had his final showdown with Wesker as the base self-destructed. The two rivals fought, but Chris was no match for Wesker's power, only surviving thanks to an explosion that separated them both. Chris escaped with Claire as the Antarctic base was destroyed, while the Raccoon City incident shattered Umbrella's reputation and stock value. Chris and Claire knew the fight was far from over. Wesker was still out there, and the bioweapon black market was just getting started. A New Breed of Terror, Autumn 2004. 7 years after the Raccoon City disaster, the world had changed. The fall of Umbrella didn't end bioterrorism, it just democratized it. Viruses and BOW were just being sold on the black market. Leon S. Kennedy, now an agent of the US government, was sent out to a remote part of Europe to rescue the president's daughter, Ashley Graham, who had been abducted by a mysterious cult. Arriving in a desolate Spanish village, Leon quickly realized this wasn't a T-virus outbreak. The villagers were mindless zombies. They were intelligent, coordinated, and murderously hostile. They were Los Grandos, the cattle. Humans infected with an ancient parasite called Las Plagas. This parasite took over the host's nervous system, making them servants to the cult leader while giving them enhanced strength. The cult, Los Luminados, was led by Osman Sadler. His plan was to use a mature Plaga to infect Ashley, send her back to the US president, and then use it to infect high-ranking government officers. Leon's rescue mission became a desperate will to survive. He was briefly aided by Luis Serra, a former researcher for Sadler, who was trying to atone from his past by stealing a Plaga sample, though he was tragically killed by Sadler. Leon's path was also crossed again with Ada Wong, who was on her own mission for Albert Wesker to receive a dominant Plaga sample. Their relationship remained as complicated as ever, Leon and Ada. To make matters worse, Leon confronted by his former training partner, Jack Krauser, a soldier believed to be dead, who was now working for Sadler and Wesker. His arm mutated by a dominant Plaga. Leon and Ashley was both infected with the Plagas, a ticking clock that threatened to turn them into puppets. They fought through the village at a Gothic castle ruled by a tiny aristocratic Ramon Salazar and a fortification island military base. After defeating a mutated Kushter in a knife fight to his death, and finally a special radiation machine that could destroy the parasite in their bodies, Leon and Ashley were finally cured. In the final epic confrontation, Leon faced off against a monstrous transformed Osman Sadler with a timingly rocket launcher delivery from Ada. Leon destroyed Sadler for good. Ada, however, took the Plaga sample from him at gunpoint before escaping in a helicopter, leaving Leon and Ashley to find their own way home on a jet ski. He had stopped Sadler's plan, but the age of bioterror was clearly evolving, with new threats emerging from the shadows. The end of a saga. 2009. By 2009, the fight against bioterror was at a global war stage. Chris Redfield, now a founding member of the Bioterrorism Security Assignment Alliance, or BSAA, was a man haunted by his past, especially the loss of his partner, Jill Valentine. who had declared killed in action during an operation against Oswald Spencer back in 2006. Chris was sent to Kijuju, a zone in Africa, to apprehend a black market arms dealer named Ricardo Avining. There he was partnered with Sheva Olamar, a member of the BSAA's West African branch, whose family was killed by Umbrella in an Umbrella experiment years ago. It was immediately clear this was another Plagas outbreak, but a new and more aggressive Type 2 variant. Irving was just a pawn. The real threat came from a new virus called Ouroboros, a successor to the progenitor virus. It was Spencer's original dream, a tool to select the worthy and consume the weak. As Chris and Shiva pursued Irving, they uncover a conspiracy that tied back to the very first origins of Umbrella. They discovered a vast underground Umbrella facility where the progenitor flower was originally found. The whole operation was being orchestrated by Excella Giune, the CEO of the corrupt pharmaceutical company Tricell, and an old familiar enemy, Albert Wesker. Wesker hadn't just been funding the operation, he had perfected the Ouroboros virus. He planned to release it in the atmosphere from a stealth bomber, wiping out all humanity and leaving only the select few chosen to rule the new world. A twisted version of Oswald E. Spencer's original version. But the most shocking revelation was that Jill Valentine was still alive. She hadn't died, she had been captured by Wesker and, through a device on her chest, brainwashed into being his loyal, deadly enforcer. After an intense fight, Chris and Sheva managed to release Jill from her chest device, mind control, and set her free. After Jill declared that she was okay, Chris and Sheva chased Wesker onto the stealth bomber, which they managed to crash inside a active volcano. In the last desperate act of madness, Wesker merged with the Ouroboros virus, transforming into a monstrosity with tentacles in a frightening, fearing, climatic battle on the edge of lava flow. Chris and Shiva fought their way through. From a helicopter, Jill and Shiva provided covering fire as Chris battled Wesker. Finally, with 2 rocket launchers to the face, Albert Wesker, the man who had been a ghost in the machine for over a decade, was utterly destroyed in the heart of a volcano. The legacy of Umbrella and its original architecture was finally over. A World in Chaos, 2013. 4 years after Albert Wesker's death, the world was no longer safe. A new bioterrorist group, Neo Umbrella, unleashed the C virus, a protein mutagen that creates a wide variety of monsters. The resulting global outbreak in 2013, seen in Resident Evil 6, was so huge it required multiple perspectives to understand. The first story follows Leon Kennedy, who, alongside fellow agent Helen Harper, is forced to kill the zombified President of the United States after being attacked under bioterrorism. Blamed for the president's death, they go on the run to find the real culprit, NSA specialist Derek Simerson. Simerson led a secret society called the Family, and he orchestrated the assassination to stop the president from releasing the US government's role in Raccoon City's disaster. Simmons, obsessed with Ada Wong, used the C virus to transform Helen's sister into a Ada clone. When this clone, Carla Radams, betrayed him, he framed Leon. The chase took Leon and Helen to China, where they witnessed a C virus outbreak, and after Simmons mutated into a series of grotesque beasts, Leon and Helen finally put him down. The second story follows Chris Redfield, a traumatized by the loss of his entire BSAA team in a previous operation. Chris is suffering from amnesia. Under his second in command, Piers Navans brings him back into the fight. Driven by pure vengeance, Chris leads his new team on a crusade against Neo Umbrella in China, hunting the woman he thinks is Ada Wong, but is actually her doppelganger Carla. His ruthless pursuit leads to a confrontation with a massive BOW called the Halos. To save a wounded Chris, Piers injected himself with an enhanced C virus, gaining the power to defeat the creature at the loss of his own humanity. In his final act, Piers shoves Chris into an escape pod, sacrificing himself as the underwater facility explodes. The third story introduces Jake Muller, a mercenary in the fictional country of Edena. Jake is the illegitimate son of Albert Wesker, and he carries antibodies to the C virus in his blood. He's targeted by Neo Umbrella, who wants to strengthen the virus, and the US government, who needs his blood for the vaccination. He is protected by Sherry Birkin, now a government agent, who was saved from Raccoon City by Leon and Claire back in 1998. Their journey is a constant chase, ending in a final battle against a C virus monster in China. And finally, the real Ada Wong has her own story, working from the shadows to clear her name and dismantle Simmons and Carla's plan. All these stories converge into China in the climatic chaos of her ending. By the end, the C virus threat is neutralized, but the world is left in permanent scarring, and its heroes are more broken than ever. The Winters Family Saga, 2017 to 2021. After the global trotting adventure of Resident Evil 6, the series took a sharp, terrifying turn back to survival horror. In 2017, a man named Ethan Winters got a message from his wife, Mia, who was presumed dead for 3 years. The message leads him to a bizarre plantation in Louisiana. This is the start of Resident Evil Biohazard. Ethan finds Mia imprisoned in the Baker's family home, but the Bakers, Jack, Marguerite, and their son Lucas, along with Mia, are infected with something that has given them incredible regenerative abilities and driving them violently insane. Their property is infected with black, tar-like substance and grotesque creatures called molds. The source of the nightmare is a bioweapon that looks like a young girl called Eveling. She's a BOW created by a criminal group called The Connections, can control minds through a specialized fungus, the mold. Eveling is obsessed with having a family, and she has infected the bakers and Mina to create one. Ethan is put through an unimaginable torture, repeatedly killed and resuscitated by the baker's power. He fights his way through the twisted estate, eventually creating a neotoxin to kill Eveling. In the final fight, a heavy armored military unit arrives, led by a man calling himself Redfield. This is Chris Redfield, of course, but his appearance with a new blue-coloured umbrella logo raises a lot of questions. It's later revealed this blue umbrella logo is a private military company formed from the ashes of the old umbrella, now dedicated to atone for its sins. Chris captures one of the bakers, Lucius, who was secretly working on the Connections and contains the Eveling threat. 4 years later, in February 2021, Ethan and Mia are living a quiet life in Eastern Europe with their infant daughter Rose. This peace is then shattered when Chris Redfield and his squad storm their house, seamlessly killing Mina and abducting Ethan and Rose. This is the start of Resident Evil Village. Ethan wakes up near to a village ruled by 4 monstrous lords who serve a mysterious leader known as Mother Miranda. The lords have taken Rose and Ethan must fight through their domains to get to her and get her back. He faces the towering Lady Alcina Demetrius, the disturbing dollmaker Donna Benevento, the grotesque, gruesome Salvatore Remo, and the grotesque metal-bending Carl Hensberg. Ethan discovers that Mother Miranda, a century-old scientist who discovered the source of the mold, a fungal superorganism called Megamycete. Miranda lost her own child due to the Spanish flu and has spent a century experimenting with the mold to find a perfect vessel to resurrect her. Evelyn was one such attempt, and Rose, being the child of the 2 mold-infected parents, is the perfect host. The biggest twist is revealed by Miranda herself. Ethan Winters actually died during his first encounter with Jack Baker back in Louisiana. The man we've been playing as is a molded recreation of Ethan with his original background and likeness. This is why he could take so much damage in the past. In a final act of salvation, and a crumbling Ethan gives his daughter to Chris Redfield and detonates a bomb, destroying himself, Miranda, and the Megamycete. As Chris flies away with Rose, a chilling discovery is made. A squad member reveals that the BSAA soldiers sent as a backup weren't human. He removes his helmet from a corpse to reveal a bioorganic weapon. Chris is horrified The BSA organisation he helped found to fight bioterrorism is now using BOWs as soldiers. His mission changed instantly. He set out on a course for a BSAA Europe headquarters, grimly stating, "Someone's gotta pay." The father's story was over, but the child's story and the corruption of the world's saviors was about to begin. 16 years later, a teenage Rose struggling with her powers would deviate into the Megamycete consciously to find a cure, reliving the horror of the village in Shadows of Rose DLC. A New Era 2026. And that brings us to the present day, February 27th, 2026. The world of survival horror was redefined with the release of the 9th mainline installment, Resident Evil Raccoon. Hailed by critics as a crowning achievement, the game's masterful bridges the gap between the series' classic horror roots and its more modern action elements. The story moves on from the Winter Saga, picking up on the threads left dangling for years. The game introduces a new protagonist, Grace Ashcroft, a brilliant but frightful analyst of the FBI. She's tasked with investigating a series of murders and deaths connected to survivors of Raccoon City incident. Her investigation leads her to the Rement Hotel, the site of a personal tragedy from her past. But she isn't alone. The government has also assigned a legendary agent to the case. An older and world-weary Leon S. Kennedy makes his first major appearance since the events of 2013. Resident Evil 9 innovates by having players alternate between the two protagonists, each with their own game styles. Grace's section is pure survival horror, forcing on stealth aversions, puzzles, and resource management, feeling like a callback to Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Leon's sections are more action-packed, arming yourself to fight against the monsters that are thrown at you, making it feel more like Resident Evil 4 Remake. For the first time, players can switch between first-person and third-person perspective for either character, letting them tailor to their own experience. The plot deepens into the long-term consequences of Umbrella's actions, exploring the government's conspiracies and the deep-seated trauma that an event like Raccoon City leaves on people. It is celebrated for its dark, mature tone and complex characters, delivering a story that's both a love letter to the 30-year history of the franchise and a bold step into its future. With the fastest selling launch in the series' history, post-launch content already has been confirmed for the game, and a story that finally brings Leon S. Kennedy back to the forefront. Resident Evil 9 has set a new, terrifying high standard for survival horror games. I know at this point it hasn't included any information on Resident Evil 9, but I don't want to include it in this video as players are still currently playing the game due to its release. From the cold labs of the Umbrella Corporation to the dusty villages of Spain, from the heart of a volcano in Africa to the snow-sweeping ruins of Eastern European village. The Resident Evil timeline is a testament to an enduring fight between humanity and the monsters that has been created. We follow Chris Redfield from the Spencer Mansion to his war against the corrupt BSAA. We've seen Leon Kennedy evolve from a rookie cop on the worst first day in his life to a legendary agent facing down global conspiracies and almost death. We've witnessed the tragic ending of Albert Wesker and the Winter family Saga, as well as heroic sacrifices made along the way. The threats is always evolving from the T-virus and the last plagues from the mold to whatever new horrors await in the future. But so are the heroes who rise to meet it. The story is far from over. If you made it through this entire timeline, you are a true survivor. This series is one of the most dedicated fan bases in gaming, and I want to know your part in it. What was your first Resident Evil game that you ever played? Who was your favorite protagonist? Let me know in the comments down below, and if you want to see more deep dive insights into lore on your favorite games, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Now go save your ammo. You're probably gonna need it. Take care, have a good one, and keep surviving those zombies.